Hello there. In this video lesson I'm going to talk about using Blender 2.9 and our parametric smart objects to create a ring and a bracelet. I'm not going to quite create anything as sophisticated as this, but not too far away. So if we go to Blender itself, the first thing to do is to go to Object Library, and I want to change the Object Library to the one that says Jewelry Rings. And then I want to scroll down. Now on my system there's lots and lots of parametric smart objects there to make rings. I want these round ones, so I'm looking for the one that says UK size P plus 18.14 millimeters. That's the internal diameter. Now if we hold down the left mouse button and drag this towards the workspace and hit the P key on the keyboard, now before we click, it's important that we put this in the center of the screen, and I'm scrolling the center mouse button towards me. Now when I click outside of the box, that is put exactly in the middle of the screen, and that's what I really want to do, and I'm scrolling the center mouse button away from me to zoom in now. Now the object is only selected when you've got the yellow outline, so do click on the ring after you've placed it on the screen there to select it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a sort of cage on the top of this ring, and I'm going to use Add Curve and the Fluid Designer parametric curves, and I'm going to add a Enneper curve, and that's an object that comes up on the screen, and that's a parametric smart object. And whenever you go to add mesh or add curve, etc. over here, always look for this little panel here and always open it up. Now the default resolution 90, if we were to go into edit mode, this is the number of control points that make up this parametric smart object. In general, I would recommend you probably reduce that to 30. You can try all sorts of different values, but I would suggest perhaps try 30 in this instance. We'll come back to height and scale in a moment. This one here, bevel, it says 0.5. Well, if you click in there and type 0, the body of that object disappears. And what we can see there is the actual curve itself with no thickness. Now, if I click in there and type 0.5, that gives me a material thickness of 1 millimeter. 0.5 is essentially the radius, so twice the radius is the diameter. This is circular in cross-section, the body of it, so it's 1 millimeter thick. If we wanted to type 0.4 there, twice 0.4 is 0.8, so this would be 0.8 millimeters thick, and that would be okay if we upload it to Shapeways. Now, the red is the x-axis, and if we scroll further down, if we look at rotation here, at the moment it says 0. Now usually things like 90, 180, 270 are values to enter here. So if I click in there and type 90, we can rotate the object, and we can get that perspective on it. Now I really want to be able to see what this object looks like. So if I hold down the center mouse button and click and then just rock the mouse, I can see a little bit better what I've got here. I've got a ring, and then I've got this object here. Now, I'm going to put this object at the top of the ring. So I'm going to go back over here and I'm going to try and change some other values. Now, if this panel disappears on you, just depends where you click. If this panel disappears, click on the object itself. So it's disappeared now and I can't get it. Click on the object itself. Hit X key on the keyboard to delete it, and go to Add Curve, Enneper curve, and it will give you the last one. It will give you 30 and whatever other values, the 0.4. And, well, the 90 degree has disappeared, actually, hasn't it? So let me type in the 90 again. But the other settings were there. Okay, now, height, well, that is obviously the height of this object. Now, try not to click on the screen while you're doing this. So if I change that to 1, that clearly changes the height of the object. I don't want it too big at the moment, so I'll go back to 0.5. Scale, well, if I type in 3 instead of 2, obviously that makes it a lot wider there. Now, I might want that, but I'll go to 2.5 and see what that looks like. Okay, and I'm just using the center mouse button here. Careful, don't click. Just use the center mouse button to zoom in and out. Now let me try changing these values P and Q. I'm not going to type in, I'm just going to click on the end here, and you can see I can get a different pattern occurs. And if I change that one to 4 and that one to 5, I get this parametric smart object here. And that's what I'm going to leave it as in this instance. Now you can play around with these values. You can play around, oops, I don't want an assembly. You can play around with different parametric smart objects, different curves here, and come up with different patterns. I'm going to leave it as that at the moment. And I'm going to click on Z over here to change the viewpoint back to that view. And I'm going to click on that N upper curve there. And I'm going to move it up until it's in line with the bottom of the ring there. Now, I'm probably going to adjust it again in a second, but okay. Now, as long as I've got an overlap between those objects there, and if I just click at this icon here and hold down the left mouse button and move the mouse, I can center that in the screen and I can zoom in and then click on this object here and just move it down and make sure that it is overlapping with the ring. And I'm just scrolling the center mouse button towards me now. Now, if I export this as an OBJ file, this will be 3D printable. But let me look at this from some different angles. Well, if I hold down the Control and Alt key and press Q, I can look at that from different angles there. And so here I'm looking at it from the right, here from the front, here from the top. This is the view we started off with, so this is still in top view. If I point the mouse in this panel here and hold down the center mouse button and rock it, I can see what my ring looks like. Now, I'm thinking that maybe I could make this look a little bit better if I could taper out the top of this ring. Well, I can. If I just hold down Control, Alt and press Q again to go back to that view, and if here in viewpoint, if you click on Z, that will always take you to the top view. Now make sure you click on the ring and not the object at the top. And if we go to edit mode, we get control points. This object is a curve at the moment, and these are called control points. Now I just want to click on that one control point at the top there. And with the cursor in the middle of the screen, if I press the N key on the keyboard and go to Item, now if this isn't open, this transform property, open up the transform property, and there's this value here called radius. Now if I click in there, and if I type 1.5, notice the top of the ring thickens up. If I click in again, if I type 2, it will thicken up some more. Well, if I click on Y and go to that view, you can see as well as thickening it, it's widened it at the top. Now if I click in here and type 2.5, it's made it even wider still, and 3, and I'm going to go mad in this instance and go to 3.5. So I've really widened up, tapered out the top of that ring. Now if I go to the top view here by clicking on the Z, you can see I've added extra thickness to the ring at the top here compared to the bottom, but I'm not too worried about that. The bottom of the ring should be 1 millimeter thick. This is obviously thicker now, but that's all right. I'm going to leave that. I'm happy with that. But if I go back to object mode, clearly this now is too low here, so we need to scroll the center mouse button away from us and zoom in. And we need to just move that object up there so that it's overlapping. It needs to be overlapping, but that parts of it are sticking out. Okay, so I've created this kind of cage at the top. Now I'm not going to add any gems to this, but within Jewelcraft, there is a facility for adding gems and different types of gem and different sizes of gem. I'm not going to do that in this instance, but you could clearly add a gem into this. Okay, so I've got the ring and I've got this cage at the top. Now you can't join, although these are parametric smart objects, you can't join this object to the ring as such. because the cross section of this object, it should be 0.8 millimeters. The cross section will go completely wild if you join these two together, so you can't join these objects together. But if you just export it, if we just go to File and export it as an OBJ file, go to the desktop and just call it ring, and return and export the OBJ file. And I'll just do Control, Alt and Q to show you the 4 views there, and N on the keyboard to close that down. So we've got our ring here and this little cage at the top. And so you can see it from the right view. So we've splayed out the ring like this. So that's what we've got. So if we go to Netfab Basic and go to Project and Open, you must always repair in Netfab Basic. Always. Go to Ring and open up the OBJ file and click on Repair. Now in this instance, when I click Update, it says there's nothing to repair. Now that's quite unusual, but you know, my habit is to just go Automatic Repair and Execute and apply the repair and remove the old part. It's not often that you get zeros. Part, export it as a wavefront object, and right on top of that. And just say yes. And that OBJ file can then be sent to your slicer or uploaded to Shapeways, and you can generate a real ring in a variety of materials from that there. Okay, so that's how we can create a ring. Now if I just do Control, Alt and Q just to go back to that view, I'll just hit Z to go to the default top orthographic view. And in the outliner panel over here, I'll just point in the outliner panel, A to select all of those objects and X to delete them all. Because what I'm going to do now is to show you how you can create a bracelet in Blender using our parametric smart objects. So if we go to the object library and go to jewelry bracelets, there should be a number of objects on your system, not as many as there are on mine. There's lots and lots of bracelets on mine. But if you go to the second one that's down here, under A, Akhenaten, you're looking for the one that says 002. Don't use 001 or this one, 001 or 002. I want this one here. And so if you hold down the center mouse button and drag that towards the workspace, hit the P key on the keyboard. Now, my computer's quite slow, so I'm just going to scroll the center mouse button towards me slowly. And I need, I need to click outside of the box. So I've just taken that careful on my machine because my machine's not that powerful. You must click outside the box to get it in the center of the screen. And then if you just zoom in, click on the object itself to highlight it. Now if I hold down the center mouse button and just rock the mouse, I'm just holding the center mouse button and moving the mouse carefully, I can see what that looks like, and I'll just zoom in on it a little bit. Now I don't like this perspective view. Here it says user perspective. I like to click on that and to change it to orthographic view. Excuse me. That just looks a little bit better for me. Now, this object that's on the screen at the moment has got what are called modifiers applied to it. And normally you would have to set up the modifiers yourself, but I've set them up over here for you. So there's something called a curve modifier. And the curve modifier links the parametric smart object to this object here called inner diameter. Excuse me. This is the inner diameter. The default size for this is 65 millimeters. Over here, there are some other objects, different ones, which you could drag and drop onto the workspace, and you could change the inner diameter of this bracelet. So we've got this parametric smart object here, and it's wrapped around this object here, which is a curve. There's also this thing here in the modifiers panel, and this is called an array. And if I change that number there from 2 down to 1, it changes my bracelet pattern. So instead of 2 rows, I get 1 row. I can go up to 3 rows or 4 rows if I want. Now you do need to be very careful with these parametric smart objects. The thing about having 4 rows there is that when we complete the bracelet, we're going to end up with probably a million faces, and I'll show you that. If I just close that down, if I go to add modifier and decimate, here it says 732,672 faces. But I haven't completed the bracelet yet. To complete the bracelet, I can click on here. This is the top array. At the moment, there's 18 copies of this. If I click in there for the count and take it down to 1, and if I click in and open this and take this down to 1 as well, that's the number of rows, that's the basic parametric smart object. And the basic number of faces in that is 10,000. 10,000. And when I change this to rows, 4 rows, and I change the count, and I think it's about 24 or 25 to fill this up. If I go there, 25. Now that's nearly complete, but if I look down at the bottom, there's more than 1 million faces here, so you do need to be careful with this. You can't go too mad. Now I'm just going to delete that decimate modifier. I'm going to take my rows back down to 1. Okay, so that will reduce the face count dramatically. And in the first array here, where I've got 25, if I just click here, it says X 0.9. If I make that smaller by clicking to the left, my pattern changes. So I can create bracelets here with lots and lots of different patterns. You don't want to go above 1 here, because you'll see you won't have a bracelet anymore. You'll have gaps. We're trying to 3D print this, remember. If you actually click in the middle of there and type 0.91, watch the gap fill. So that's the way to actually fill in the gap there. Now, if we wanted, we could put a ring around the top of this and a ring around the bottom. If we wanted to just change the design of this slightly. I'm not going to do that in this video, but if you watch some of our other videos, you'll see how to do that. But I'm just going to show you that we can make this 3D printable by going to File and Export it. If we export it as an OBJ file to the desktop, I don't want to call it ring, I want to call it bracelet, and export the OBJ file. Now it'll take a little bit of time to do because there are 250,000 thereabout faces on this. So it's converting this curve. At the moment this is a curve object. It's converting it into a mesh. So that'll take a little bit of time. My computer is fairly slow, but it will get there. Still doing it, but it will get there, don't worry. Just got to give it a bit of time as it does all the calculations, converting this. That's it, it's done it now. So if I go to Netfab Basic, go to Project and Open, and go to Bracelet. Now if I just scroll across, this is 39 meg in size. It's fairly large file size, but you can upload it to Shapeways and they will 3D print it for you. Or you can print it on your own 3D printer, and I've printed them in plastic as well, and it's surprising what you can actually do. And it's just the file size that's taking a little bit of time to load all of this, but it will work. So there's the object, and you see I've got a warning red triangle, but Netfab Basic, hit the repair there. Now be careful not to click on here too quick. So there are some holes. Now there's a lot of border edge problems, but not to worry. Automatic repair and execute. Allow the green to go across and give it a little bit of time after it goes across. Wait till these turn to red. And if we click update, this is all back to 0. So you can apply the repair and remove the old part. And then if you go to part and export it as an OBJ file and save it and say yes. And so that is a 3D printable object now. Not quite finished saving it. Yes, it has now. Yeah, so I'll just close NetFab down. I'm not going to use NetFab again. Let me just go back over here and set the count back to 1. That's the parametric smart object which I've used. And if you go to the object library and go near the bottom, if you go to patterns parametric, this is the pattern. This is exactly the same pattern here. And in patterns parametric, there are lots of other patterns. Borromean, there's Enipa patterns, Caparadia, and Celtic knot patterns. They can all be used to make bracelets. Okay. Now, if you are interested in studying this and learning more, if you go to Udemy, and you will find that there are some courses that we offer, and one of the courses that we offer, we were producing these bracelets and earrings, sorry, not bracelets, pendants and earrings. And then there's a course that's on rings, and it includes a little bit of a lesson on bracelets as well. So you'll find that on Udemy. And yeah, essentially that's it for this video. Showed you, I talked a little bit about creating rings and bracelets using Blender 2.9. Thank you for watching.